You're not weak because you feel anger. You're not undisciplined because emotions rise inside you. Emotions are not a flaw, they are proof that you are alive, human, breathing with the same ancient currents of passion and fear that have always moved mankind. But where strength is lost, where men fall short, is not in the feeling itself, but in what comes after. Power slips away in that first unguarded reaction, in that instant when we let the spark of emotion turn into a fire that burns without direction. That's the trap most of us fall into, not because we feel too much, but because we move too quickly. We mistake reactivity for strength, speed for power, and loudness for authority. The Stoic knows better. He doesn't deny emotion when it rises, nor does he shame himself for being human. He doesn't bury anger, or sadness, or desire under a mask of cold detachment. He does something more difficult. He trains for the space in between, the tiny gap between what he feels and what he does. And it is in that space, fragile yet powerful, where life can be rewritten. That sliver of pause, that single breath of stillness, is where wisdom lives. It's where chaos softens into clarity, where emotion loses its grip, and where choice becomes possible again. Most people don't know they even have this choice. They live in reaction. An insult hits, and the words fire back before thought catches up. Frustration rises, and the door slams, the voice shouts, the silence hardens. Disappointment strikes, and blame is thrown like a weapon. This is how most of the world lives, like machines wired to obey the first command of their feelings. But you weren't born to be a machine. You weren't designed to be dragged around by your impulses. You were meant to master them, to pause long enough to see clearly, to choose not from the heat of the moment but from the vision of who you want to be. That pause is not inaction. It's conscious action. It's not fear-driven hesitation, but clarity-driven restraint. It's the space where you can ask yourself, what am I really feeling? Why am I feeling it? And what would the strongest, wisest version of me choose to do right now? That kind of reflection does not come in the rush. It only comes in the pause. And the more you practice it, the more you train yourself to respond instead of react. Think of the people you admire. The calm leader who holds steady when everyone else is panicking. The friend who listens deeply instead of shouting back. The figure who stands firm, unmoved, even when provoked. They are not cold. They are not emotionless. They have simply built the habit of creating space. They have learned that power does not come from being untouchable, it comes from being unshakable. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if you are disturbed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That's what the pause gives you, the ability to revoke your first estimate. To look again before you speak. To see deeper before you move. To decide if what you felt in the first second was the truth, or just a distortion of ego, fatigue, or fear. And in many cases, you'll realize you don't need to lash out, you don't need to defend, you don't need to prove anything, because your peace is more valuable than your pride. But let's be clear, pausing isn't avoidance. It's not running from conflict. It's ownership. It's facing your emotions head-on, acknowledging them fully, but refusing to let them be the master of your behavior. In that pause, you break the cycle. You declare, no, I won't let this moment define me. I'll define how I meet it. That is strength. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep, steady, and enduring. And it's practical. In your next conversation, your next conflict, your next temptation, practice the pause. Just 2 seconds of silence can prevent 2 hours of regret. Just one deep breath can stop a spiral before it begins. Just a moment of reflection can change the course of a relationship, a decision, even a life. Because the truth is, you don't have to act immediately. And the moment you realize that, you begin to act intentionally. Stillness is not weakness. In fact, stillness is where your greatest choices are born. In the rush of reactivity, your options shrink. Everything feels urgent. Everything feels personal. Everything feels like a battle that must be fought right now. But in stillness, the opposite happens. Choices expand. The noise fades. You see not only what you can do, but what you should do. And that difference, between can and should, is where character is forged. The world glorifies speed. Quick replies. Quick anger. Quick comebacks. But the Stoic knows that quickness is not the same as strength. Silence can look like weakness to the impulsive, but in truth, reactivity is the real weakness. If anyone can push your buttons and get a guaranteed reaction, then you are not free, you are owned. The one who angers you controls you. The pause is the way out. The pause is freedom. Seneca said, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Not denial, not suppression, delay. Just enough time for reason to enter. Because once reason shows up, emotion loses its grip. Once perspective arrives, the fire softens into a signal. You realize the anger wasn't about them, it was about you. The offense wasn't about the words, it was about the story you told yourself about those words. The pause reveals this. And in that revelation, you gain power. Think about how many regrets in your life began with a reaction. A harsh word you couldn't take back. A decision made in haste. A choice made just to escape the discomfort of waiting. The pause prevents this. It doesn't erase your feelings, it gives them time to evolve, to reveal their true shape. Because raw emotion is rarely truth. It's a signal, yes, but it's incomplete. Only with time, silence, and reflection can you see it clearly. So breathe before you speak. Create space before you act. Build stillness before you decide. Because in that stillness, you don't just avoid regret, you build character. You build trust. You build a life that is no longer run by your impulses, but guided by your principles. That is mastery. That is freedom. And here's the secret, the pause compounds. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. Over time, it becomes instinct. It becomes who you are. You become someone who cannot be easily provoked, manipulated, or broken. Someone whose presence calms instead of inflames. Someone who doesn't add to chaos but transforms it. That's why the pause is not small. It's everything. It's not weakness. It's not hesitation. It's wisdom in motion. In a world that glorifies noise, the pause is rebellion. In a culture that worships speed, the pause is power. And in a society where everyone reacts, the one who reflects will always stand out. Because when you pause, you are no longer just living, you are leading. Leading yourself. Leading your emotions. Leading your life. So practice the pause. Protect it. Train it until it becomes your nature. Because when you learn to pause, you gain more than a moment of silence, you gain mastery over yourself. And that mastery is the foundation of every strong man, every wise leader, every life lived with intention. Speak less. Reflect more. And let your calm become your greatest power.